Hey, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and how's everybody doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better than one of our good friends. I like to think of them as friends now because we've done so many shows about Marvel and DC and about streaming wars and Disney Plus and HBO Max. And we've obviously laughed at other services that we shouldn't have laughed at, like Apple TV Plus, which turned out to be great. Um, I'm doing good, Paul, but I'm nervous about tonight's show because this is one where we may have to say things that seem like they're negative, but
Yeah,
they're not. Because I think we're on the record. You can check our past. We made this, this video may be about the DCEU being in ruins, but
hmm
it doesn't mean that we don't like DC properties. It doesn't even mean that we don't like some of what they've done already. So, Paul, it's going to be very hard to talk openly and frankly without people taking us wrong.
yeah. Like that's gonna be yeah. It's gonna be the we're gonna have to hurt DC to get it to the where we want it. I
Yeah,
guess.
Yeah, and
Um.
I think that that's kind of where we're at. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about with the DCEU, that's the you've heard of the MCU, even if you're not into Marvel or any of that stuff. This Marvel Cinematic Universe. DC went for DCEU, which is the DC Extended Universe. Um, but essentially, it's the film universes of the comic properties for the lay people. Why
Yeah.
is any of this interesting? It's interesting because Marvel have taken over the world with the MCU, and DC have the more famous just on the surface have the more historically famous characters, Superman and Batman being the kind of the top two. You talk to somebody person on the street in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s and 2010s, and said name a superhero. Anybody who's never heard of superheroes will say Superman. It's kind of in his name. Or Batman, because Batman had been around, TV show immortalized him for generations. Um, so why wasn't DC crowd the ones to take the lead and win all this?
Yeah, that's the biggest questions and kind of what we'll be going through because uh, for MCU they did start in 2008 with Iron Man and Incredible Hulk. So they did get a kind of a jump on the DC, but as you said, Superman is one of the Superman and Batman are the two most famous superheroes that are definitely like they are bankable. Like
Or at least where? Because
yeah,
I would argue that since 2008, things have changed.
yeah. So
I
let's
think around 2015, things had actually switched. That's when the big shift had happened. And like I say, 50 years before that, people weren't familiar with Iron Man the same way they were familiar with Batman.
yeah, like that's the biggest thing. Batman is like the man, you know, and like he's the de facto billionaire kind of person that like has become a vigilante and stuff like that. Whereas Iron Man may not be as well known originally, but was played excellently by Robbie Downey Jr. and the movie was just fantastic as well.
And for my money, Paul, if you take today and the next, let's say 30 years, is Iron Man as famous as Batman? I'd say yes now. I think Iron Man is as famous as Batman, as famous as Superman. Spider-Man has is the one exception, maybe that has been as famous as long, let's say, or like
Yeah,
Spider-Man would be in there with the Batman Superman stuff, even though he's a Marvel character, he would have been their most famous Superman, as in title with man at the end of it. But they had very much got the most famous female superhero in Wonder Woman.
yeah, no, definitely. Like Wonder Woman's movie alone has which has been just an incredible kind of like show of power. I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger so people can see. Um, Nor the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, the man,
But
yeah,
yeah,
the man
no, the
behind the curtain.
Wonder Woman's the most famous kind of female superhero, which is, and then on top of that, her movie as well was also probably the most successful of the DC movies as well. So like they've just doubled down on kind of her character as well with notoriety and stuff like that, and then the movie being really well. But yeah, like I think the only the only other Marvel heroes that would probably be well known is probably the X-Men, Wolverine and
Mm.
stuff like that. They would probably be the only other ones, but they're more of
And
an ensemble.
Maybe the Hulk in the 70s and 80s and 90s. The TV show, Bill Bixby's TV show with that great
Oh
kind of
yeah,
walking off at the end, that helped mainstream the heck out of the Hulk.
yeah, definitely, yeah. So like, so DC has the most notoriety of superheroes, starting with the action comics back then with Superman and stuff like that. So like they're primed. Like we understand that they've already done a lot of movies and stuff like that compared to the MCU. Like they already
Mm-hmm.
had the Flash movie and the Flash TV show. They had a whole bunch of TV shows, a bunch of Batmans, a bunch of Supermans. Like
Yeah.
like
They had, the Donner Superman is maybe the quintessential super, you know, real big budget blockbuster superhero movie, Christopher Reeves, etc. It was the one that by the time the term blockbuster had been created, it was the first super person comic property to ever really use that to its full effect. But you're right. They had nailed a lot of stuff, including, the Michael Keaton Batman. They were way ahead on the TV game, and some would say still are.
yeah.
Because Agents of Shield, I love you, but until Disney Plus, and I'm saying TV, they're not streaming, just
Mm-hmm.
regular TV programming. DC were doing, let's say, 90% better than Marvel.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, not only that, like in the cartoons, which we'll talk about a little bit more, they had like the plethora of Batmans that you can see on screen, going from Batman Beyond, the original Batman, like, so the original animated movie, Batman Beyond, then they had, which is the Batman, then they had the movies. They have like a load of stuff to go on, and then not only that, but they also then had also the Justice League Unlimited series as well, kind of thing. Like, well, we'll talk a little bit more about this stuff as well. But like, Warner Brother seems to have an absolute like they seem to have the advantage. And then what happened? Where are we gonna? This is
Well,
the
I'll tell you what, Paul. Let's kick it off from the point of. I think the reason we brought all that up is to say that at the start of the race, DC didn't have any disadvantage. They didn't have, if anything, they had a slight advantage. So if you call the starting pistol 2007, let's say a year before Incredible Hulk and then Iron Man. I don't want to. How should I put this? The reason they screwed up, I'm just going to call it screwing up,
Mhm.
is because nobody knew. They didn't know what the MCU was going to become. Nobody, like the phrase MCU didn't exist. It was just this Marvel movie, Iron Man. Oh my God, that's really high quality. That's really good. It's a really new way of looking at things. There'd already been X-Men movies and Blade and stuff like that, lest we forget, that had broken a lot of ground to get people into the idea that you can go and watch comics movies that are not just going to be aping the idea of moving panels to panels. Thanks, Ang Lee, your Hulk as well,
Yeah.
for keeping that alive longer than it needed to be. But DC weren't at a disadvantage at the start. They just didn't know. So both camps took slightly different approaches.
Mhm.
The thing that I think went wrong with the DCEU is that they tried to create it. And we've talked about this before. Once they realized there was an MCU, all of a sudden there had to be a DCEU. And, Aquaman was a huge success with not a little known character, but let's say not hugely popular outside of comic area, the comic book world. Like a lot of people don't really identify or know Aquaman, or didn't, and they do
Yeah.
now. And Momoa made $1 billion for them, and that worked out really well.
Yeah.
But then Joaquin Phoenix did the Joker, and if that had happened way back at the start, would they have tried to parlay all that into a DCEU? I don't know if they would. And for my money, artistically, it's the best thing they've made. And I love Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
And I actually, I like the Batman that they used in their Justice League. I like Ben Affleck, and I'm fine with Momoa and all the rest. And this isn't me hating on Man of Steel. It wasn't my favorite. Batman v Superman, not great. All that good stuff.
Yeah.
Put all that aside, though. Why did they try and catch up in this race? or what made them think that they could do it but do it differently. My thing is they failed because they tried to do the same as somebody else, but tried to do it in a different way. If they were going to copy the formula and do it like Marvel, but they didn't.
Yeah, like I do. We've been on record about this. Is that they rushed to the finish line in the sense of they wanted their big ensemble movie like the Justice League that you can see on screen. Like I was discussing this with Patrick just a little bit before it. So we've said that they've rushed to the finish line a lot, but actually, it's taken them the same amount of years to get to the Justice League as it has with the MCU to the Avengers. The difference is that where the MCU kind of took it a little bit more, they took each of their characters and gave them their own film. And I was just saying they really only introduced fully a character, and it was pointed out that he did feature in Thor a little bit, was Hawkeye. Hawkeye was the only character that they really introduced in the Avengers. In the Avengers, yeah.
The Avengers movie, the first team up movie, let's call it.
Yeah, like they only Loki was part of Thor, Coulson, Coulson was part of most of them in a very beloved character in the sense. Nick Fury was also involved in the backgrounds.
And Black Widow was in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, so going through the MC movies, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, Thor, and then Captain America, and then we got the Avengers. So they went through their full big roster of characters that they were going to go through, and then only introduced one. The Justice League, the DCU or DCEU, and just to brew, DCEU stands for which is DC Extended Universe. What DC did was they got Man of Steel, then they did Man of Steel and Batman, then they did the Suicide Squad. Which, yeah, and then they did Wonder Woman, and then they did Justice League. So if people haven't noticed, there's 6 characters on that screen, on that poster. They introduced 3 of them in the 4 or 5 films that I just noticed. Yeah. So they introduced 3 characters that are full on big players in their Justice League in their movie. Now, the Justice League, the Snyder Cut does help fix that a little bit. But it's not enough because it is like a reshoot or the Snyder universe kind of thing.
So it's 4 hours. I could fix anything if you give me 4 hours. Yeah, I'm joking. Sorry, that's me being catty just because some people. Can we go on the record something really quickly, Paul? We're both Snyder fans, both huge fans of Watchmen. I like Sucker Punch. I don't know if we've ever talked about it. I own a DVD or a Blu-ray copy of Sucker Punch because everybody gave that film such a hard time. I went out and put even more money into it, going, it's actually better than people realize. I think Snyder's great. I love a lot of his work, but this Snyderverse thing has to just chill out. And this idea that his Justice League is much better, yes, it is, but it's also twice as long, and got almost the same budget as a original movie to make. So sorry, I wanted to get us on record as we like Snyder because I that's true up to a point, I think.
Oh yeah, no, that's like I like 300. I like which is the Sucker Punch. I like Watchmen. I like most of his films. I also like elements of Batman versus Superman.
Me too.
But this is my thing. If you look through the amount of directors that were involved in the first phase of the MCU, they're all different. They do have Jon Favreau took on the Iron Mans, so he was Iron Man 2. They were just we've got our director, he understands the character really well. Yep. Kenneth Branagh was Thor.
Branagh was just perfect.
Yeah, he really lent into the camp, kind of the ridiculous campiness of
and
Thor.
He had that Shakespearean kind of touch and background to give it that authentic kind of feel that it needed.
Yeah, and then which was Captain America, you got Joe Johnston, which I like. The reason that I just have to look at his name is because he's the one who did Rocketeer and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and stuff. Rocketeer, first of all, is so in the house of Captain America. It is, and
also in period too, for the period movie that they were going to make.
Yeah, so they chose MCU chose their directors kind of thing. So they each
Patty Jenkins was a great choice on the DC side. But that's a standout. I complete your point is really well made.
It's the fact is that it then goes mostly Snyder. Snyder does the majority of the legwork. Snyder does Justice League. He does which is Batman and a Man of Steel. Like I know David Ayer does Suicide Squad, but like you have the back of it. Like Josh Whedon only did the ensemble movies. You know,
Mm.
like he only did the Justice Leagues. Sorry, the Avengers kind of movies. Whereas like you had directors coming in, because then what that happens is it means that you can go to the director and kind of go, how am I like, okay, so John Favreau, you know Iron Man, you know Tony Stark, you know John, you also know Robert Downey Jr. really well. So we need to do an ensemble movie. How would he react in these kind of situations, and how do I direct in that sense? You know, like you can pull out things from different directors to help add in more of what is loved by those individual movies and stuff like that. With Zack Snyder essentially leading the helm, like it's one person's vision kind of thing. So it means that there's essentially now the other reason why I also like the black and white Justice League thing is they're all the same essentially because they're all practically run by Zack Snyder, which isn't a problem. It's just
No.
Man of Steel, Superman is very different to Batman, and you need that tone difference and stuff like that. Where we got it in the MCU. So my thing is that it felt like they were different characters a lot more than when in the DC kind of universe thing.
Well, Paul, can I ask for two favors? One, can we jump to the comments for a second, just because I'm very conscious that we shouldn't go on too long without hitting the comments.
Mhm.
And then two, when we come back from the comments, remember to ask me in relation to Zack Snyder running the show, what I think the problem there is, because that's going to lead on in case I forget. So to the comments, Pop Culture says best Disney Marvel was Blade, and it was R-rated and wasn't accessible, and that was best Marvel before the kind of the Marvel Iron Man universe, the MCU.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man was good. Bruce says Blade was his favorite comic, and he watched The Crow last night. Saw your tweet. I think everybody knows The Crow is, where is it? The Crow is one of my Crow is one of my favorite films of all time. I'll never be shy about that for even people who don't like it. And yes, originally it was a comic book / graphic novel, I guess, really. And you've already answered what DCU stands for. Do you want to pick up some?
Yeah, DC made the mistake of trying to copy MCU, didn't want to take the time. Yeah, like that's the biggest problem with them from our stance, but there are others that we talked about there. Do you think it was kind of fans' fault by pressuring DC to do DCEU? No, I don't think. I honestly don't think Warner Brothers is a big enough company to be able to, like, with fans putting pressure on you, it actually gives you more of a reason to do it slowly, because you can release, like, you had the ability to release 6 movies and then your 7th one, and also if you really wanted to throw in Suicide Squad into the middle of that, like. So you had the ability to essentially give everybody what they wanted by doing it properly and giving them 6 movies individually to introduce the characters and slowly bring them in together, like they did in the MCU. But you could do that with every character and stuff like that. So like my thing about the pressure on DCU by the fans, Warner Brothers are big boys. They can take that pressure and stuff and turn it into an actual marketing thing. So and bank money on it. Like,
no, I fans can be a pain in the neck about things, but like I say, studios, they're all big money people in the end anyway. If fans suggest something that they don't think they can make work, they would never do it.
Yeah. The issue too was the extended edition of DCEU were better, and you can tell studios and directors were not working together.
It does seem from the outside that there was definitely a dissonance between the creatives and the execs, for sure.
Yeah.
First couple of Marvel movies were standalone, the possibility of the Avengers movie, but if those movies didn't take off, the movies would still stand by themselves. That's a really good point. But I think, and I'm gonna thank you, Pop Culture, for asking that question, or saying, they made a mistake, that DC made a mistake trying to copy Marvel. My take is not that they made a mistake by trying to copy, they made a mistake by not copying. Because I think if they'd committed to it, and this is a nice segue, so you don't have to ask your question anymore, Paul, because my point of Zack Snyder, the one man behind the helm, it's pretty easy. One of the most famous people in the MCU right now is not It's not Iron Man. It's not Robert Downey Jr. One of the most famous is Kevin Feige.
Yep.
He's not on screen, and he's currently as famous as most of the people that appear in the movies. People know who Kevin Feige is. They know he was the guy with the vision who'd been given the support by the corporation to guide with his hand this MCU into existence. And as pop culture points out, by making good movies, picking people like Jon Favreau and saying, Jon Favreau, prove to me that you can do this. I believe in you. You know, it's not like Kevin Feige hadn't been around for a while. He had, but this was, you know, Marvel were on their ass financially. Folks, that's the other thing. People think of them now as a massive company. The reason that they don't own Spider-Man is they had to sell Spider-Man to Sony. Like they've gone through some financial hard times, and things have turned around remarkably. Kevin Feige, as much as he's part of the business success, it's the creative success and that overarching vision of saying, make the good movie. The post-credit scene may stitch this together. Once things are working, we'll stitch more and more together. We'll have an Avengers movie. And they haven't got everything right since then, but they have had the one very passionate, very business-oriented, yet very creative leader, let's say, in Kevin Feige, that's been able to, you know, have people like the Russo brothers want to work with him again and again, and not have that studio interference feeling. DC didn't have that because they didn't sit down and go, okay, we need corporate creativity. We don't need just a director, because directors are creatives with a creative vision who want to literally show on screen their storytelling. They needed somebody in the back room to be a creative mind to say, okay, I'll make sure this business doesn't get out of hand, but I'll also make sure that it's going somewhere from a creative standpoint. Because that's what Kevin Feige, simplified, in my view, has done. DC didn't do that. DC didn't have that. I don't want to hear about Walter Hamada or anything else that people are going to start throwing up now. Jeff Johns, any of that stuff. DC never had that. They never even really tried to get that far.
No, it felt like they tried to do that within Zack Snyder kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's my that's my thing. As in, they tried. I think they were just like, well, we can't get a executive producer to overlook this whole thing. Why don't we get a director to kind of, you know? And the problem, as you said, is that they're not thinking corporate kind of thing. They're not thinking of the formula or anything like that to kind of do it. They're more thinking of just the creative side and everything, which isn't a fault at Zack Snyder. It's just that as an overall tone and stuff like that, he is a very kind of specific one. And having that overall, the entire grouping or the majority of them and stuff like that, for before the Justice League, because I know that like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, didn't have Zack Snyder there, so like it's more the fact that like, yeah, he was kind of doing the main pushes for a lot of the stuff. I see that. So my point is that I think DC tried to do that, or Warner Brothers tried to do that, in the sense of having Zack Snyder as a director kind of help with it, whereas it was just like, no, what you do is you get an executive producer to kind of look at the big picture, look at the long game and stuff like that, then get the individual directors to do each character or certain characters, and then essentially get someone who's very good with ensembles and stuff like that and kind of bring them all together to kind of do it. Yeah, like, it's kind of this weird thing. DC copied the MCU in the sense of trying to get a full universe together, but they didn't copy taking the time and effort to do it for each of their characters.
Have you ever bought a knockoff watch? I on holiday once upon a time, I did, as a joke, buy a Ferrari watch just because the Ferrari part was spelt wrong. I thought it was hilarious and I could get it really cheap. That's the same thing as wanting to build the Ferrari watch, but not taking the time or putting the money and effort into actually building the Ferrari watch. And that's, I'm not saying that DC or Warner cheaped out. It's more they didn't commit to, if you're going to copy the other guys, copy the other guys. Lock, stock, and barrel. Which, Paul, I know we're going to have to go to our ad break in a second, but I think the second half of this video is going to be about how the DCEU is dead. And that's not a bad thing, because they're going to copy the MCU now.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to say it.
No, and like yeah, that's going to be the biggest part of it. And I saw that Pop Culture has said that they try to make Christopher Nolan the overall producer. He only wanted to do the trilogy that he wanted to do, which was a big thing, and then he did want to kind of, I guess, stretch his wings and go for other films.
Yeah, and he's going to come up again in a moment, actually, when we're talking about some of the other stuff. So that's good shout.
So, but yeah, what we'll do is we'll go for our short break now, just to kind of I guess get in front of that whole horrible Zoom kind of stuff. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. We'll just take a look at our with little ads, and thanks very much. We'll be back in a couple of seconds.
See you soon. Hi, I'm a regular person, just like you. I don't have dead, lifeless eyes or anything. If you're like me, you're frustrated with the trash that keeps getting served up to you by the internet. Well, do I have good news for you? I've found Hear Us Out. These two handsome, intelligent, and not at all egotistical folk talk about everything to do with the world of entertainment, covering everything from how movies are made to what TV shows you really shouldn't miss out on. I know, a service like this must cost an awful lot of money. Well, have no fear. It's all available for free on YouTube, with an extensive back catalogue and new episodes every Thursday. To take advantage of this, all you have to do is go to their channel and hit the big red subscribe button. Insider tip, hit the little bell to get notified of any new bonus content. Add some colour to your life. I know I could use it. Hear Us Out. 3D talk in a 2D world.
Hey, welcome back.
Thanks for that, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tip your waiter, or waitress. Paul, we got out of all that a moment ago talking about DCEU is dead anyway. So why and how can we say that? Well, unless for anybody who doesn't know, Warner owns DC. Warner Brothers owns DC, and that's who's been making the movie. So it's DC, but Warner has been the company. Warner Media has been making the movies. Warner Brothers. That's now changing because Discovery and Warner Brothers have joined together to create Warner Brothers Discovery, or Warner Brothers Discovery in that order.
Yeah,
but that's a huge thing. So there's a new guy in charge called David Zazlav. Last week there was their investor call, and he said a lot of things. But one of the things, and I'm going to speed through this, Paul, to save us some time for the cool talk, is that he has said essentially, hey, I'm not going to be doing any more of this stuff the way things have been done before. Things are going to change around here. So that's a huge implication. So we're not doing a video specifically on HBO Max is going to be gone in a year. It's going to be a new service along with Discovery Plus. It'll be named a new thing. I know somebody who works in HBO, and I talked to them about this, and the name hasn't been settled on yet that they know of either. All that's a great video, but there are about 5,000 videos about that since last week on the internet. So we're not going to go into it. For that, you've already seen it if you want to see it. But interestingly, when he did talk about DC, he mentioned how important Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash, The Flash got a mention. And all this was under the shadow of about 24 hours beforehand, they'd cancelled a movie that they'd shot and apparently edited to almost completion called Batgirl.
Yes.
Now, how did you feel about it when you heard that Batgirl was cancelled?
I was annoyed because I like Batgirl, the character and stuff like that, but I also was just like, it was like, and I know this is going to sound real bad, I was also just like, it's probably not going to be great.
So similar feelings then, Paul, because I'll be honest, when somebody says we've made a movie and we've completed it pretty much, it's at the 98% upload point, and we're still not going to release the video, it's a bad sign. Now I genuinely felt sorry for everybody involved. They all got paid, hopefully. I think it's sad that they won't get to have their work released, because it'll never be released more than likely now, because it'll be a tax write-off, and for it to be a tax write-off, it can't just be pushed to a streaming service or whatever. But importantly, they said, and Zaslav kind of confirmed this, it wasn't great. And we're not putting out stuff that isn't great. We're also not putting out big films straight out to streaming. which, if anybody doesn't remember us going nuts last year when it was the previous administration at Warner that were doing day and date releases where they weren't sending stuff to cinemas. Brew, I know that you've mentioned you couldn't believe that Fury or Prey, sorry, which is the Predator prequel, hadn't gone to cinemas and that it was straight to streaming. Well, these guys were the ones that were like, yeah, we'll put stuff straight out in streaming and in cinemas in the same day, or straight out in streaming altogether. He's kind of said, nah, the way this is all going to work, folks, is it starts at a cinema, then it'll go premium video on demand, as in you'll be able to pay and rent. Then you'll get it what they call SVOD, the streaming video on demand. So that's your services, whatever HBO Max and Disney Plus are called in the future, or not Disney, Discovery Plus are called in the future. So you can see the business sense, you can see all that. I'm glad that they're not releasing a movie they don't believe in, because releasing a bad movie, whatever about stars getting in trouble and Ezra Miller, we've talked about you before. If a film is just bad, it's not going to help anybody. Mm-hmm. It's not going to help the people involved in making it. It's not going to help the star. So don't release it. I say this is the first good sign that DC are now under ownership that's going to make it work. And the second big sign for me is at that investor call, DC are now their own studio.
Yeah.
Paul, DC were never their own studio before now, and people don't realize that. That's groundbreaking. That's the one thing that makes me more positive about all this than anything else. They're now actually going to do what Marvel did. Be their own studio, put their own people in charge, and do their own thing.
Yeah, because they outsourced a lot of stuff. Some Zack Snyder kind of production companies helped, like friends helped a lot with some of the stuff, and yeah, there's a plethora of studios that did kind of go into different sides of the DC coin and stuff like that. What I do really like actually is just to be specific about David Zazlav said it is not good enough to go out for theaters, so we're not putting it out. Like, and then started the conversation about that they're going to do the tiered system, theater kind of thing. But it was a big shock. It was an absolute amazing thing when they were just like, if it's not good enough to go to the theater and it's going to go straight to streaming, we're not doing it, kind of thing. Which was it was just like, oh my god. And as you said, having the same day streaming like premium kind of thing was just crazy. I hated the fact that Doom was I think Doom was nearly one of those. I think they did kind of back off from it a little bit. Was also released on HBO Max at the same time and stuff, which just hurt it. It's just going to hurt sales. I don't know why they thought it was going to be a good idea, but anyway,
it was some really bad, poor decision making. It didn't make them any friends with the theater owners. It didn't make them any real friends with the public. It was seen as what it was. It was a way to try and get into the streaming game and catch up with Disney Plus as quick as they could. Because they weren't even trying to catch up with Netflix. By the way, Disney Plus has now passed Netflix for subscribers. So Disney Plus is now the king. But my faith in David Zazlav, he comes from NBC. He comes from a TV background. He was there for a lot of success. My thing is, I don't know the guy. And I feel really sorry during a merger. Lots of people are going to lose their jobs. That's just the way it is. And actually, Pop Culture pointed out that, through all this, he found out that HBO and HBO Max were separate companies. Essentially, they were separate entities. There's a lot of duplication now, and it's the same with the Disney, and I keep saying Disney, Discovery side of things that Zaslav is coming with. It's going to be tough. People are going to lose their jobs, and that should not ever be overlooked. But that happens in all industries, and I hope that all those great people find jobs elsewhere, or Disney Plus is getting bigger, so Disney own Marvel, there's jobs right across the street, hopefully. But if he's willing to do this and say, here's how a streaming service should work, it should work as part of our overall empire, that also makes me think this guy really is thinking like Disney. Because we all think of Disney Plus as massive. Disney have theme parks. Disney is Disney. Disney own Marvel, Lucas films. They have ABC, the TV channel. They have got all this stuff under their umbrella. He is now very much talking in the same way about Warner Discovery as we are going to have a big feck off umbrella with lots of things where they should be, and not just try and make a streaming service work for the sake of being in the streaming wars. Because it'll only ever get as big as it's going to get. And then they're going to have an advertising tier, which is what Netflix is going to have to do now that they're losing subscribers and need new revenue. So there's a grown up in the room. There's an absolute business
Yeah.
grown up in the room. And because that grown up has said, and DC is important to us and should be their own studio inside our stuff, much as Marvel is their own studio inside Disney, how can it get worse for these guys now? I think it can only get better. I'm sad that, you know, again, the Keaton showing up in Batgirl thing. I hope they find a way to reuse Keaton. I hope the Flash movie does come out, if that's the way we get to see Michael Keaton as Batman. But I'm excited about the idea of what a DCU. Let's just call it DCU because it won't be EU anymore. Let's see what a DCU would look like. If they have to recast everybody, so be it.
Yeah, well, like, I see, this is okay. So going into a little bit more of that, I don't think they'll recast Henry Cavill as Superman. I do think he's a good Superman. I don't think he's done well. As in, like,
you don't think they'll bring him back?
No, yeah. I think they'll bring Henry Cavill back.
Oh, you think?
I think so. He announced at Hull H that he was returning as Superman. So his contract is there, and I don't think, like, and I honestly believe that Henry Cavill's actually a good Superman. I just don't believe Zack Snyder was the one to bring Superman out. That's my big thing about it.
Gotcha.
Like, there's plenty of good actors in the roles in which they're playing. I think Jason Momoa is a good Aquaman. I don't think they'll get rid of him. I do think that they'll reboot it. They might reboot his thing, which is Ben Affleck. I think he's an amazing Batman. I am worried for him. But we'll see how that goes. I do think I think they should keep him. I do think they'll keep Henry Cavill, which is because he is just a very good Superman. I just don't think he was used well.
I'd agree.
Which is oh my god, Wonder Woman.
That's Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. I do think that they'll keep her in it because she is a fantastic Wonder Woman, and I think that they'll keep the team around Wonder Woman. I think they'll just be more precious about how they work there because.
Are you talking about Wonder Woman 84 by any chance?
Oh my god, no. I wouldn't be ever. I wouldn't be thinking about, yeah, I am. That is the prime example of rehashing essentially 75% of the last movie and just in a different time period.
Oh, it's awful. Like, it's not a good movie.
No.
It's such a shame.
But, like, you have things like the TV shows and stuff like that. So the biggest problem of, like, DC originally was just doing quantity over quality, in the sense of just they were just throwing out things as part of their TV shows, which are better than the MCU ones, but there's so many of them, and not all of them are winners. Like, you know, like Arrow was very good. Did enjoy Arrow. Arrow was great. You know, can't dispute that. Which is, I'm gonna get rid of the Batgirl kind of one. Which is you then had the plethora of essentially Constantine, which I have no idea why they cancelled it. It was an amazing show. They had the Flash TV show, which is great and finished off really well. Supergirl got I think didn't finish off that well. I don't think it finished.
Is the Flash not finishing next season? Does it not have one more to run or something like? Because I haven't watched it. I know it's over now, but I don't know if they have a few more left to release or not.
They might have a few more. I haven't been cooping up on the Flash, but I do know that's because I do know that he was also meant to be in his actually, yeah, because his, I think the Flash TV show is meant to have Ezra Miller in it as well, or vice versa. The movie is meant to have
Barry Allen, the CW's actor, yeah.
And then the DC Legends of Tomorrow had a rocky start. I will give that. It had a very rocky start, but did find its footing after a while and stuff. And that's essentially all B-lister kind of characters. So, like, the TV shows were all really good, but they did throw a lot of them out there. Whereas Marvel, once again, going back, I guess, as a template, they just threw out Shield at the start, and then started kind of looking into more of their kind of TV game. But the interesting thing was then that they instead of bringing new people to play the TV versions, they just brought the actors from the movies and just put them in there, which was a great connection kind of thing. I am sorry to Supergirl, who was meant to be in the Ezra Miller thing, and we're still kind of getting a more kind of like, is it will it won't it kind of release and stuff like that. And as you said, the Keating Batman and Batgirl kind of thing will also not be, like, we don't know where it's going to be kind of thing. Those shifting tides and stuff are bad, but Sorry, go ahead.
poured over the guy's words.
Hmm?
Oh gosh, sorry, we had a
We had a bit of a
time
lag
delay
spike
there.
there. So what were you
Sorry
saying?
about that. No, I apologies for anything I missed. I was just going to say to Zaslav's actual words on some of this, because I'm the same as you. I hope the actress that got cast as Supergirl still gets, whatever happens with that Flash movie, who knows. But one thing Zaslav stuck into one of his statements was, I think that we can make Black Adam and Shazam and Flash better. So they may be, delayed and getting reshoots as part of a bigger thing, which leads to your point of you don't think they'll necessarily recast everybody if they don't have to. And I'd be fine with if they do or if they don't. I don't mind. I think Gal Gadot's an amazing Wonder Woman. I think Jason Momoa has made Aquaman his own. I think it'd be very hard to recast. You'd have to tell a completely different type of story,
Yeah.
which is going to be very hard with Namor showing up in Wakanda Forever in a few months' time. But long story short, if they're going to, if everything he said is true, they're not in a rush. They're really going to pour themselves into this. Everything they do is going to look and feel big budget and theatrical so that they can then make money out of it all the way down the stream. And the important part of it is that they can make money from it. Because I don't care if somebody says something that sounds creative when they're just a business person. It's when they say something creative and go, and I think that'll make us rich because then I know they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
If a money person explains where this thing that sounds good to you creatively is going to make them money, I believe them instantly. And as far as, the TV shows, I think they'll find a way with their new streaming service to start rivaling Disney Plus's, WandaVision, Daredevil, all that good stuff. So again, all of the thumbs up for what could happen next for DC. Paul, have you got a picture of three gentlemen that you could throw up for me for 1 second?
I do indeed.
Because the three gentlemen that are going to show up on screen are Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, and Alan Horn. Kevin Feige, we've already talked about. He's the chap in the baseball hat. He is the guiding hand behind Marvel's success, let's say. Bob Iger, he's the Big Papa Iger was in control of Disney. He's the guy at the was the guy at the very, very top during their success. And then the last guy, Alan Horn, he's not as famous, but he kind of should be. And he used to be with Warner way back around the time that Christopher Nolan was making a certain trilogy of movies. He then was with this particular trio, helping, Kevin Feige says he was a bit of a mentor, and Kevin Feige says great things about Alan Horn, and Kevin Feige says that Alan Horn deserves some of the credit for the MCU. Who might argue with Kevin Feige? Do you know where Alan Horn is now after retiring from Disney? Yeah, he's with Warner, folks. He's back in this new company we're talking about as a special advisor. Like I've said it 10 times already, I love the idea that they're copying Marvel's success the proper way, which includes taking people who are part of that success.
Yeah.
Like if they stole Kevin Feige tomorrow, I'd be sad because a big Marvel dude, but it'd be like, golf clap, well done.
Yeah.
Zaslav, Discovery, Warner, Melange, whatever your name's going to be.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about, why I'm so incredibly excited. Because for me, Batman is great. When Batman's done well, incredibly compelling character. Superman needs to be done right by somebody at some stage. But I'm kind of into the idea of Marvel not having it all their own way, because competition breeds better competitors. And if Marvel don't have a decent DCU sized competitor for their MCU, they'll start resting on their laurels and it'll fade away. I really want DC to do well to put the fight up to the other guys.
Well, because this is, I guess, where a little bit, well, we've seen examples of that in Phase 4. Phase 4 has not been going well, overall. It has not been doing well at all. And I do think that it's a little bit of, we've told it before, it should have MCU taken a break for a bit and kind of planned out their next kind of, grouping of films and stuff like that, and their next big kind of steps towards the story thing. But we don't know. But yeah, now we've got DC kind of coming into the ring with a lot of contenders that, as you said, have helped develop the MCU a little bit more and stuff. That I like. My thing is that it's just great because if the MCU is on the way out and Phase 4, although like the end of Phase 4 and Phase 5 looks promising, you know, Phase 4's start has dampened, apart from Spider-Man, has dampened a little bit of it. Like I liked the majority of the movies that came out during. Like I liked Multiverse of Madness. I don't like what it did to certain characters, but I did like it as an overall story.
I'll keep myself calm in the face of that statement.
Yeah.
We don't have time for me to have another outburst.
Thunder, like Love and Thunder. That was, go look at the other movie, our other show back there. On that, like it's been on shaky ground, the Phase 4 kind of stuff. That if it's on the way out and DC are just like, we're getting our act together and we're gonna make a new DCU kind of thing, it just means that I get another 20 years of kind of superhero movies that actually are actually good, and not the kind, like the ones that you get like Martin Scorsese, who are just like, they're not real art, and they're just like, well, they have a lot more compelling characters than you've done in the last 5-10 years, kind of thing.
Your point though is well made. Like I hesitate even to want to have to call them superhero movies or comic book movies or any of that stuff, because they're just bloody good storytelling. That's it. That's what it is. I want good storytelling from people who are funded and motivated. And that's what the MCU's been. It's been funded and motivated, guided, and giving us entertaining, good story. Because they're not all fluff pieces. They haven't been the Fantastic Fours. Like, we're getting another shot at the Fantastic Four, Paul. Maybe fourth time's the charm. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah. Depends on who's going to be in it. But yeah, like, because the reason that I'm bringing up the cartoons again is because they've been done for years, and like, let me just tell you, this is Justice League Unlimited. This isn't the first Justice League. This is actually the second season of it. The second season, first season is 24, 28 episodes. Okay? They started just with the original team and just started to slowly build them out. The reason that, like, they have characters up there like, which goes Aquaman and Supergirl, which goes Black Canary and stuff like that. They Zardana and stuff like that. They have characters up there that no one knew about. But what they did was, in the second season, they took the time. They go, you know these guys. You know Superman and Batman. You know those. We've introduced those. We've really pushed those. We've even brought in episodes of other characters in the first season. But what we did in the second season was, we then made stories around the kind of extended crew. And then what we did was we got you to learn them as well, so that when we had them in with the original cast, you kind of knew who they were, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Marvel did similar with Guardians of the Galaxy. They tried to do with the Eternals and stuff like that. They're trying to bring in their extended roster, and they're trying to give them movies in which you can learn them. Now, I know that they're hit and miss and stuff like that, but at least they're taking their time.
Yeah,
DCU,
they're into Phase 4 of their work, so that shows you how further down the line they are.
To have DC go, you know Batman, you know Superman, you know you know these guys, but we have an extended group, because Shazam and Black Adam are like extended groups, and they're gonna have which is Mr. What's his name? There's a guy, Pierce Brosnan's character.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
Black
about.
Adam, which is like they're gonna have a plethora of characters that they're gonna have to teach who they are. But I'm really glad that they're gonna take the time to do it. And it really seems like, because like I like the extended DCU family a lot more than I like some of the extended MCU family, and that's and so like I'm really excited for people to learn this roster really well, and I think the cartoons did it really well, and I think if they do it in any way similar to the cartoons, then we're in for some absolute amazing stuff up the way.
And all these characters, and it's much like I can't wait for the XMen to make a comeback, because they afford the opportunity not for cool superpowers, and not even for cool heroic adventures, for good storytelling and allegory and examination of just everything from societal ills to the core of the human spirit. This is what I want from my movies. I want that in my storytelling, and these are wonderfully flexible mechanisms to do that. You can, if anybody is in any doubt, as much as I mightn't like Bryan Singer, watch the first few minutes of his X-Men, the first X-Men movie. You know, you're talking going back to a time when concentration camps existed. It's writ it large and writ it loud in front of everybody going, here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about people's intolerance and
Yeah.
difference and essentially, you know, the core evil in humanity sometimes. And then we're going to go off all sorts of crazy places and tell other sub stories and make you think about other things. That's what it should all be about. I don't know that much about DC's deeper roster. Like I really don't. And I know you do, and that's cool. And that's one of the things between us that when it comes to all this, I'm kind of going, I know there's good stuff that I haven't seen yet. I'm dying for people to bring it to me. It's why I'm so pumped about the idea of DC getting this right. Not only because I'll get to go and watch cool movies, but I'll get to have new creative adventures and new creative avenues used to tell me things or make me think about things. Same thing with then the fallout into the TV shows or the streaming shows, whatever way they might be. I incredibly enjoyed Daredevil on
Yeah.
the Netflix Marvel stuff. Incredibly. Did I have any relationship with Daredevil before that as a comic property and Marvel side of things? Not really, like a bit, but not to the level of knowing anything more than the basic conceit of, you know, blind lawyer.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
need
that's
the Ben Affleck stuff, maybe.
well, yeah, good point. But even before him, I knew it's like all of these things, you know, the basic.
Yeah.
Okay, you know the basic three lines. What is their shtick? What is their thing, and what's it maybe an allegory for? And I'm looking forward to hearing more and more and more of that because we haven't mentioned it, Paul, but there's a brilliant superhero show, fantastic superhero show that neither one of these people own. The Boys.
Hmm.
And anybody out there that doesn't like us talking about comic book stuff, I say watch The Boys.
Yeah.
These are all just mechanisms for telling stories and entertaining you at the same time. And The Boys is doing some really, really weird storytelling in some really, really weirdly entertaining ways that
Yeah.
sometimes I wish I wasn't entertained about. Because it's like, ooh, should I be laughing right now or should I be getting sick?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's Lollapalooza also. Or Hero Gasm. So my last, so we'll go to the credit, go to the comments in a second. My last thing is about the indie movies. So that is the Batman and the Joker. So
Yeah.
do you think that these will be either somehow in like slowly added into the new DCU, or will you think that they'll just like they are working as separate stories, keep them as separate stories?
I think the Batman, yes, the Joker, no. And here's why.
Ooh.
I think the Batman, like as in they may get rid of Pattinson and go a different direction.
Oh, okay.
But I think the idea of I think they'll stop doing the Batman. There won't be a Superman and then another Superman inside their Justice League. But I can see it with the Joker. I can see them doing Joker style movies where you don't need any supernatural, any super anything for them to do the story that they did. I can see there being two Jokers, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
I can see there being the DCU Joker and then the Joaquin Phoenix standalone Joker. I can see them doing standalone storytelling, but maybe not doing another Batman style one, more of a Joker style one.
Hmm. Interesting. I think that actually the Joker and the Batman will be kept separate. I think they will keep those two on. I think
You
they'll
think?
keep them. Yeah, I think they'll keep them as separate, kind of, because they were done really well. They were like, and it's because that they are from separate. They don't have the pressure of kind of being part of this wider universe. I think that they're just telling their specific grounded story, whereas the DCU and MCU can go bigger. I think they will keep the Batman, and I think they will keep the Joker separate.
I
Um,
hope they do still do separates. Let's call them
that
separates for now.
yeah,
I
like
hope they still
the
do separates because that was one of the things that DC did so much better than Marvel have even got close to trying. I would worry around the Batman specifically
I
because of the character itself
yeah, I know
being
that.
so central. But you might be right. It might be one of those characters that they can run, you know, a parallel universe, let's say, that they can run two separate storylines. Because Let's face it, it's the Batman.
But that's my thoughts with it. I actually called them indie DC movies.
Yeah, there you go. Indie
like,
DCs.
The indices. But yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, I think that the Batman probably is on more shaky ground because of him being a central character of the house, or the house that Batman built. It's a big thing for them. But the Joker, I think they'll keep. I do think that the Jokers are more of on a stable foundation of kind of being kept separate and kept going.
And I hope if they're listening right now, these kind of separate DC indies or in DCs, whatever they turn out to be, I hope that it doesn't stop at the Joker. I want them to have their DCU like an MCU, but then go one step further and beat Marvel at the thing that Marvel hasn't been able to do, which is have these separates. Because they have Z-list characters, I'm fairly sure, that, given the right creative people, could make some amazing stories.
Oh, yeah.
They've got properties out there that could be great. I'm trying to think of somebody right now, but it's escaping me.
The Question could be really good. He's an investigator. He's just a PI.
There you go. So why not? Why not use everything that you have in your IP catalog? Not everything has to be part of the main continuity or the main story. If you can do these stories separately, as well as they did with like the likes of the Joker, then I'm getting greedy here, Paul, but I'll take it all. Do it all right, and I'll love it all. And I don't even mind if they get to a point where they do what Marvel do and make a mistake every now and again.
But that's, like, we said this before, you build up essentially respect and trust that if, like, and confidence that if you have like an Ant-Man or something like that in the middle of your kind of, not to rag on Ant-Man, maybe Dark World, like Thor Dark World or something.
Eternals even, yeah.
Just something that kind of like kicks like, not like this doesn't do as well and stuff like that and isn't great. You're kind of just like, but like, they're like, they've built up a good confidence with me that they can do well.
Yeah.
They tried something different and they kind of failed. So yeah, should we go on to the comments and then we'll wrap things up?
Absolutely, Bob.
I don't think them. So I'm sad that the Batgirl, Keaton. So we already said that. How did it get to close completion before they released that it is a bad movie? So I think on that one is that it wasn't a bad, like it wasn't a bad movie to be released on streaming, but David came in and was just like, no, our new standard is if it's not good enough to be released in theaters, then we're not doing it, kind of thing. So like, I think
we're not doing big budget streaming movies. This one isn't good. It's not good enough, rather than maybe saying bad.
Yes,
is that and also it's a victim of timing because and I think Pop might have called this out. Now's a great time for write-offs too while you're doing mergers. So
yeah. I don't think Man of Steel is a Superman movie. It feels and looks like a Batman movie, so would love to. See, this is that's Pop. Yeah. You're right on my level.
Get out of our heads.
Yeah.
Get out of our heads.
Like,
yeah, it's well put.
Like that's the thing is, Henry Cavill would have been really good, which was Bruce, but he wouldn't have been a good Batman, I don't think. I suppose it's the same as artists working on the last track for an album and then canning the whole thing. Sort of, yeah.
That's in reference, yeah.
We should have Lex Luthor wake up and have DCU as a dream. There's so many good Lex Luthors out there that are better. They're better suited.
I want to show my age and say Bobby Ewing should climb out of the shower, do it like Dallas did it. It was all a dream. It was all a dream, and I shot JR. If anybody's asking.
Yeah, I think there's a good Lex Luthor out there, so I'd like that to be rebooted. DC shows were hard to stop up with because all the crossovers. I stopped watching because didn't want to watch everything at the same time to stay up with the shows. Yeah, and I think Marvel are going into the similar thing with their crossovers of movies and TV shows. I think that's a big thing. It's very hard for children and stuff like that. Yeah, DCD show was hard to keep up with. DCD.
I think it's the DC TV shows. It's all to the point of there's so much crossover. And I think you raised something there, Paul. We're going to be talking about this in the next year with Marvel. If they keep tightening the web too tight that you have to watch absolutely everything to enjoy anything, then whoops, they're going to be in trouble.
I've already had several friends who are like Marvel adjacent, as in they're not really into the whole thing, but they are enjoying the movies, and they watched Multiverse of Madness, and they were just like, I have no idea. Like they messaged me going, "You have to explain what's going on here," and I was like, "Did you watch WandaVision?" And they were like, "No." It's like, well, there's a TV show that literally explains everything, kind
That
of.
you need a specific streaming service to see.
Yeah, kind of thing. And they were just like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, I that is one of many people who have come to me and gone, do I have to watch this movie or this TV show to watch this movie and stuff like that? And I'm just like, it's better that you do. And I have a friend who's just like, I have a friend who's just like, they're going to do that. They're going to, like, they're just going to, like, they don't care if people complain about it. And I'm like, no, enough people complain about it and stuff like that, then it's just going to be gone.
Yeah.
IGN News just reported that Warner Brothers is thinking of hard about scrapping the Flash movie. Yeah, it has been an absolute coin toss about the Flash movie.
Well, we know it's been absolutely up in the air, and there were more reports this week. Ezra Miller, cult leader, burglary, God knows what else. Like I'm just reading headlines, not reading stories, because I'm just like I really wanted to see a Flash movie, Paul, and it's going to get to a point where they won't be able to release it, and that's going to be sad in many ways.
Yeah, because I actually had a Flash image, like, cool, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to do it now. Problem, but it's like, it's got like another Flash in it.
Oh, I've seen this image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got like
Oh no!
Flash and
Like,
Supergirl.
have you seen the short cut where he's pulling a sheet off a vehicle? There's like a 4-second clip, and you would have to be blind not to realize the silhouette under the thing is the original Michael Keaton Batman '89 Batmobile.
Yeah.
And you know, I every time I see that now as a GIF or as a clip, I'm like, oh, I want it so bad. I want to see Michael Keaton in a modern DC universe. Please give me Michael Keaton now.
Yeah.
No.
More than like they're doing like Flashpoint Paradox or something like that.
Yeah, that's essentially Flashpoint's what they're going with, I think. Yeah, that image you're showing there. Look, I know people are like, oh, but what about the terrible things? Yes, we've been through the terrible stuff. At this stage, it's a different story to Batgirl, which is a victim of other circumstances and possibly not being the right movie to be made at the right quality level at all. But we do know from all reports, the Flash movie's really bloody good. Maybe they can rework it. Maybe it can become a Batman movie that features the Flash. Maybe, you know, it'll be out in 2 years' time after another couple $100 million. Who knows?
Yeah.
All I know is the thesis of this whole thing is the DCEU is absolutely a mess and in ruins, Paul.
Yep.
And I couldn't be happier about it because I can feel the heat of a phoenix rising from that rubble.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely thinks that this is going to be finally a contender to the MCU kind of throne of like, you know, the comic book / super, like, just good storytelling movies involving superheroes kind of worlds. And I think this is good, and I think that they're all doing positive moves, and we've heard a lot of good things coming out of it. Like I as we said, we're sad about some of the movies that are going to be scrapped in the coming days and in the coming weeks, or movies that are going to be delayed and stuff. But it's all painful right now. But we're going to look back on it and just be like, thank God that they did.
Or we'll be looking back at it going, my God, they made different mistakes the second time, but it's just as bad. But either way, we're going to have to do loads of episodes about whatever the new streaming service that they come up with is. And if anybody out there is interested in us doing episodes about that and what it all means with what's the difference between scripted and unscripted TV, because they're talking about HBO being the scripted home and Discovery being the unscripted. So, you know, there's a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of people getting very confused by it. Again, 50 million videos elsewhere on YouTube. I think if you and I, Paul, can find a flavor that we want to talk about, we will. But if any of our wonderful watchers, viewers, or listeners have anything that they think we should cover, let us know.
Yeah. We should also comment down below any kind of reasons why you think the DCU were in ruins compared to MCU. And don't forget to follow us on our socials, which goes, please As we said before, like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. We are trying to get up to 500 this year, just so we can open up that community tab, and be able to communicate with more of you and stuff on some of the things that we might be doing. But yeah, that was a good one. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That's, you know, DCU coming back in a Phoenix kind of way. That's a good reference.
Well,
like
it's
that.
and this is a perfect time to end because for those of you that don't know, where we are right now is going through a bit of a heat wave. I'm in a room with a fan turned off and window closed for audio reasons, and I am about to catch fire like a phoenix. I think it's 9 billion degrees in here. That's the technical Fahrenheit and Celsius. They're the same when you get to 9 billion.
So, thank you for watching. I've been Paul.
And I've been Patrick.
And we've been Hear Us Out. Catch you next Thursday.
See you next week.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.